Welcome everybody to the Farbrengen for actually Tesvavel to Chayel. It's Farbrengen Mitam Beis Menachem of Miami Beach. But why shouldn't anybody who wants to join is welcome to join. And sometimes we even have a guest to continue Farbrengen. And tonight we're having Rabbi Shalom Ben Lipsker, the Shul Bar Harbor, the Shliach in Bar Harbor. So he's going to join us and continue the Farbrengen. But let's first start. So we started with L'chaim as you're supposed to. Dr. Levine started with the Nigen, about the good. But I want to say that this is Farbrengen and he said for Chayel. Mute. So Chayel is not till Monday. So tomorrow night is really Chayel. But now we have the Maila that we're in between. We're in between Tesvav Elul and Chayel. Tesvav Elul, which is the day that Temchet Mimim was established. It says in my name that the Rashab was Miyaset Temchet Mimim on Tesvav Elul. And this is in Mamish in between. Tesvav Elul was Friday, and Chayel is tomorrow night, is Monday. So we're in between. So this is able to be Mechaber Tesvav Elul and Chayel. And the MS, there is a great connection, obviously. I mean, there's nothing, no chidushim between the Siyazdas of Temchet Mimim and Chayel. You know, Chayel, Rebbe quotes from the Frierdiker Rebbe, from Chassidim, from Amol. Chayel gives a chayas into the Aveda of Elul, but it means it brings a chassidish chayas. That's what it is. And the union of Temchet Mimim brought chayas into Chassidus, into Lubavitch. I feel that practically speaking, besides that, you have the Bochim that learn, but this we know that after the Stalkes of the Rebbe Marash, and for quite a few years, a long time, that Rebbe Rashab's brother, the Razah, didn't want to accept the Nisiyas, and the Rebbe Rashab himself didn't want, even though he said Maimorim and he took Yechidus, but it wasn't still full-fledged. And the Frierdiker Rebbe writes that at that time, those years, it looked like, and it's hard to say such a Lashon, if the Rebbe wouldn't say it, we wouldn't be able to use a Lashon, but the Frierdiker Rebbe writes that Lashon, that it's gehalten almost by Churban Lubavitch. Found the Rebbe, and looked like things are not going to go. Then finally, when the Rebbe Rashab took over in the Siyas, this made a big shturim, and this made a big thing. But besides that, when he was Miyaset Temchet Mimim, that established it even more, that made the Chassidus, the Lubavitch, which was Chassidus, made it very strong. Ad Kedekar, they say, I forgot which one it was, the Rashbatz or Cholder Alter, one of the two, but they were speaking to each other years later after Lubavitch, the Temchet Mimim was established already in the Bochim, were Mamish, in the Hai Madrege. So he says to him, remember what we were talking, what we were worried about years before, what's going to be with Lubavitch? You see how it's pale? And he said, yeah, it's so good, so great, that it's much more than we expected. So the union of Temchet Mimim definitely is part of the union of Chayas. Chayel is the union of giving Chayas in Chassidus, in the Aveda of Elul, according to Derech Chassidus. So Temchet Mimim, these Yazdas of Temchet Mimim brought the Chayas in Chassidus, the Chayas in Lubavitch. And Taki Ad Hayem Azeh, it's Temchet Mimim, that's the Yisod that brings the Chayas into Lubavitch. So that's connected to the union of Chayel. But Chayel, we know, is the day that brings Chayas. Tesvav Elul in itself is a special day. Everyone knows what happened in the year Tovshin Memvov. I obviously wasn't there, but we all heard it then, and we all know that the Rebbe Tesvav Elul was like this year, Friday. The Rebbe went to the Eyal. The Rebbe came back from the Eyal Friday, like he would come always late, not far, not so pretty close to his man. He would come back. So the Seder was like this. By the Rebbe, when he used to go out to the Eyal, go to the car, people were standing there sometimes, and kids, the Rebbe would give tzedakah, and the Rebbe would say, but when he came back from the Eyal, he never looked at anybody, and I spoke to when he would go out of the car and run, not mamish run, but go straight inside and go into his room and didn't stop to talk and didn't do anything. That time, when he came back from the Eyal, it was Friday, Farnach, he came back when he was going very fast, and there were a few bochrim standing outside. Very few. It was Friday, Nacht. And the Rebbe, as he walked by, that's what they said over then, made with his hands like this. They couldn't understand. They were standing at 3, 4 bochum, 5, I don't know exactly the number. They were standing, the Rebbe was running from the aisle coming in, and he made with his hands. Because they didn't know what to do. What should they do? They didn't know what to expect. There's no singing. So Shabbos by Farbrengen, the Rebbe said, I came back from the aisle, and it's Festival of Elul, and I expected a 770s Olgein Chodarom. Now, Chodarom, I don't know which language it is, if it's Yiddish or Russian, that means it should go on wheels. Festival of Elul, the Siyasat of Festival of Elul. So he said, I expected that it should go, if it was Zozain Chodarom. And he said, hey, Tochen, and it wasn't, so maybe they should Farbrengen. Now, the Rebbe wanted that it should be Chodarom to express the chayas that you have, because making a shturim, the Rebbe would call Chodarom or Bechal by the Rebbe, the expression, Zozain mit a shturim, everything with a storm. The Welt even knows that in Lubavitch, also with a shturim. The Rebbe always used the word shturim, because shturim means chayas. And that has to do with chayelo, to do it with the chayas, to do it with the gishmak, with the chayas. And when you make a shturim, it's the chayas. It reminds me what I heard a long time ago, that once there was somebody who went to visit the Rebbetzin. It was close to the family, I don't know who it was. And the Rebbetzin told him that tomorrow there's going to be a Farbrengen. Was not expected time of Farbrengen. But she said, I'm telling you, there'll be a Farbrengen tomorrow. Oh, there's going to be a Farbrengen tomorrow. When he came back and he came to 770, he told him, no Farbrengen. I had no idea about Farbrengen. It was not a practice, no one said it, and it's not planned. There's no Farbrengen. He didn't understand what she meant. The play Mamish, the Rebbe went to the Elul that day, and when he came back from the Elul, the Rebbe told Rabbi Chadikov, Rabbi Groner, to announce that soon there will be a Farbrengen. That was called a sudden Farbrengen. And there was a Farbrengen. Now, sometimes these sudden Farbrengens, Take, by the Rebbe himself, was sudden. In other words, he hadn't planned to do it. He once even said before, Tov Shin Lamed Aleph, Chamishosar B'Shvat, he said he was by the Eil, Tzach mir gestupt Farbrengen. And he said that he spoke about it, and then later he says, he took a hero that from now on, if it'll push me to Farbrengen, I'll Farbrengen, whatever. But it was sometimes sudden by the Rebbe himself. And I'm sure sometimes he planned. This one, since the Rebbe said, obviously it was planned. But the kasha is, if we planned to make a Farbrengen that day, so why didn't he say anything? So this person, this is how the story goes. I wasn't there, so I can't guarantee it's true, but this is the way I heard years ago. When he came back, next time this person went to the Rebbetzin, he told the Rebbetzin that obviously this was planned. You knew that there's going to be a Farbrengen tomorrow. So if the Rebbe planned to make the Farbrengen, why didn't he say it? Why didn't you let people know? If people would know, they would plan. I mean, it would be a... So she said, der Mann hat lieb, as sie wird a Sturm. My husband is the Rebbe likes a Sturm. A Sturm means an excitement. That whenever anybody who remembers those times when you were 770 and there was a sudden Farbrengen, what would happen? Mamish, we would say, like saying Yiddish, aftish bank. People were running to go home, running to the phone, running here, making the tables. Sitz a get home at a Sturm. The Rebbe gets Farbrengen. It's a whole Sturm. So she said that even though he planned to do it, but he wanted a Sturm. So when the Rebbe came back from the Elul that time, Chamishosar Festival of Elul, and he said the next day that he expected to be Chodarom. He wanted to be, there should be Mtachayis, Mtashturim. So it's connected definitely to Chayel, even though it's a Shturim because of Timchit Mimim, but it's connected to Chayel because Chayel is the union of Chayas. The Chayas that we talk about, that Chassidus makes, is forbidden with Chayel. Actually, the Rebbe even, in the Geye Lag Baimer, which is also forbidden with Chassidus, the Rebbe also connects it to Chay. The famous Sikhe, where the Rebbe explains, like Baimer is Chay Ir, and the Rebbe Takik shows the comparison. That just like Chayel is a Chayes Naveda von Elul, Chay Ir, like Baimer is the 18th day of Ir, is a Chayes, gives a Chayes in the Aveda of Ir. And the Rebbe explains it there. So this is the union of a Chayes in the Yonim of Elul. This is, so when we're in between the days, between Tesvav Elul and Chayel, so we're able to be mechaber the two, because they're both very important. Tesvav Elul, which is the Yesod, by the Rebbe, this was something, by everybody, this Chamis Yasef, Stefot Mimim, which brought a Chayes in Chassidus, a Chayes in Lubavitch, and Chayel was brings the Aveda, a Chayes in the Aveda of Elul, so that's something special. So this Farbrengen is in honor of the connection between Tesovel and Chayel, so we're doing it in between. Now, what is Chayel? We all know Chayel. I mean, Chayel is the Yemeledes from the Baal Shem Tov and the Yemeledes of the Alter Rebbe. You also know there's another thing, a Chayel, which is not really spoken about too often, but nevertheless, sometimes the Rebbe spoke about it, and that is Chayel is the yard site of the Maral Miprog. And that also is be'etzem connected to Chayel being the union from Chassidus, from Baal Shem Tov and the Alter Rebbe, because a lot of the things of Chassidus is based on the Torah of the Maral Miprog. And the Rebbe said, and I'm going to say that when he said it, Bekesher to what? That he said that he heard Chassidim say that when the Alter Rebbe writes in the Sharblat of Tanya that Tanya is Melukim mit Pisvorim mit Pisefrim, one of the things he meant is the Maral Miprog. The Rebbe said, I didn't hear it from the Shver, so, but nevertheless, the Chassidim say it, it's true. The Gabba, why did he say it? It's interesting. This was the Farbrengen of Chai Elul, Shabbos Chai Elul, 50 years ago, exactly 50 years ago. People heard the story, but I'm telling you, I remember from the time Tovshin Lamed, Shabbos Parshas Sovei, Chai Elul Tovshin Lamed. That's when the Rebbe spoke about this being the Yahrzeit of Maral Miprog. Because what happened was, this was the time of the hijacking, when the terrorists hijacked two planes, and took him to Jordan. And they were there for a long time. And they couldn't get out, and all the diplomacy and everything, and they wouldn't let go. So then Shabbos, Parshas Kisovei, Chai Elul, the Rebbe spoke about it. And the Rebbe said that since the day is the yahrzeit of the Maral Miprog, and the Maral Miprog has a Shaykhus to Chassidus, and he said mit Pisorim of Pisefrim, and he said that the Maral Miprog had to do with Nisim, stories from the Maral Miprog that he did things. He didn't mention the word Gelom, the Maral Miprog, the Gelom, which that's a real mess. He didn't mention it, even though the Rebbe in a letter writes, somebody wrote to the Rebbe that he thinks that there was, some people say that the whole Maisa with the Gelom with the Maral is a Bama Maisa. It never happened. So the Rebbe writes very sharp that it's only known by Yidden and it's true, etc., and this he does. But the Rebbe doesn't mean, but he meant it's known to Nisim and with him Lochim. So the Rebbe said that because of that, since in this hijacking, there's somebody there was Kochzach in the Svorim from Maral Miprog. That was Harav Hutner, and he Kochzach in the Svorim of the Maral Miprog. Actually, his Kelo, I don't know, his yeshiva's Kelo was called Kelo Gurarie because that's a sefer of the Maral Miprog. So the Rebbe said, and the Maral Miprog Shaykhus Chassidus, and he says, as we see the Shaykhus, besides what he said from the Svorim of the Sefer in Tanya, he said that if you look in what the Friedrich Rebbe wrote in biography, which means in the beginning of Hayom Yom, there's the biography of every one of the Rabbeim. And the way the Rebbe said it, that the Shver who wrote it is Meyaches, the Alter Rebbe, to the Maral Miprog. It says Mamish Ben all the way to the Maral Miprog. Nothing further but the Maral Miprog. So we see the connection. So the Rebbe said that since it's the yahrzeit of Maral Miprog, and there is somebody here in this Sakona, whatever, I don't know what he used, that is Kochzach in the Svorim from Maral Miprog, so there's all the schools Beistein. And truth is, Mamish, a few days later, or a day later maybe even, they let him go free. No one understands why, but they let him go free. And I heard even more. I heard right then, I heard from Rabbi Zev Katz, his cousin was one of the, I think in Teiram Seder, one of the top guys. His name, what's his name? I have to remind myself his name. Was an Eidim by Avram Ziskind. So he was Rabbi Hutner's Talmud. So it's his cousin. So this Schiffman was the name. I think so. He called Rabbi Zev Katz 2 days later, and he says he got a call from Rabbi Chadakov. Rabbi Chadakov asked him, "Did you hear what happened by the Farbrengen Shabbos? And do you know what time it was that the Rebbe had?" He said he had heard about it. What time it was? And they made calculations. He told him that at that time, Be'erech, I don't know if Mamish to the minute or Be'erech, that time, that's when something started happening in the freedom of Harav Hutner. So the Rebbe, Rabbi Chadakov, obviously, when he called him, he's from the Rebbe, wanted him to know that this is connected. So this is the day also the Maral Miprog, which the Yortzad of Maral Miprog, which also connected to the union of Chassidus. Now, what else is there in Chai Elul? Chai Elul was the beginning of the Limudim and Timchet Mimim. Again in Ayemim, that Tesva of Elul, that's when it was Nisyasid, and Chai Elul, that's when they started learning. I once heard from the Partizan, Abzusha Partizan, he said, what do you mean it was Nisyasid? They didn't start learning till Chai Elul. What did they do between Tesva of Elul and Chai Elul? They made the yeshiva and they didn't start learning. So what did they do? Was heißt mit verbracht etliche Tage nachanand. They Farbrengen a few days in a row. Somebody else says a joke that said, "What pshat b'chalat? Which way was miyaseh if they didn't start learning?" So someone said the kitchen opened. But he said different. He said mit verbracht the ganze Zeit, few days in a row mit verbracht. But whatever it is, this is a day that also has the shaykhs to Timchet Mimim, and it was start pushed off. The learning was for some reason, I don't know why, but it started on Chai Elul. We also know that the Shazav at Timchet Mimim then was in the week of Sheva Brachas of the Frierdiker Rebbe's Chassanah, which is again connected to the Sinyan, because Chai Elul, which is the union of the Chassidus, started the birthday of the Baal Shem Tov and the Alter Rebbe, which is the beginning of Chassidus in the different stages. So it has to do with the Rabbeim. So the Frierdiker Rebbe's Chassanah was then. And that's when the Rebbe Rashab was Miyaseh Timchet Mimim, was middle of the Sheva Brachas. And the Rebbe once explained, because the whole Inyan is the Hemshech. He made Timchet Mimim not only for that they should have it then. This should be the way the Hemshech of Chassidus should go on. The Mele, it's the Chassan of the Frierdiker Rebbe. Because the Chassan, the whole purpose of a Chassan is to bring the Hemshech. And it came out even more from what the Rebbe said. The Hemshech of the Chassanim, which is the Hemshech of Deiris, is really the next generation. You get married in order to have a Hemshech that there should be children. So that's the third generation, the next generation. And the Rebbe basically hinted, or more than a hint, because the Sikh is actually Mugin, look at the Sikhs, they suffer. So the Rebbe said that Be'emes, when is the Tachlis of the Mimim Faran, that's the next generation. So what's Pshat? The generation of the Frierdiker Rebbe's children, which is the Rebbe's generation, the Deir Shvi, that's the Tachlis. So the Frierdiker Rebbe's Chassanah at that time has to do with the Hemshech of the next generation, which is the Rebbe. So it all goes together to one union. And the other thing in Chai Elul is that it's 12 days before Rosh Hashanah, and that's when we have to make a Cheshbon HaNefesh of Yom L'Shana, a day for a year. And it's interesting that Chai Elul itself is a Cheshbon HaNefesh. Day for a year means for the last year, every day is to make a Cheshbon of what happened that month that's equivalent or parallel to this day. So Chai Elul itself is when we make a Cheshbon for the month of Tishrei last year, which is for Rosh Hashanah. So this is very special that this is, Rosh Hashanah is the Reish of the year, so the whole year depends on Rosh Hashanah. So the Rebbe once explained, so B'meila Chai Elul is really the Cheshbon HaNefesh, the day Chai Elul, the Cheshbon HaNefesh for the whole year. Because if it's a Cheshbon HaNefesh for last year, Rosh Tishrei, which is Reish Hashanah, the head, which contains the whole year, so that's the specialty of Rosh Hashanah. But the special Chai Elul, but the bottom line is that this is the day that we have the Chayas in Elul, the Chayas in Aveda, the Chayas in Tshuva, the Chayas in Chassidus, the Chayas, which Chassidus is Chayas, this is the union of Chayas. And to make a Cheshbon HaNefesh, how much Chayas do we have in the union of Chassidus? It's Chay, and it's Chay, the Moledes of Baal Shem Tov and the Alter Rebbe, so it's a Chayas in Chassidus. So we have, and it's a Cheshbon HaNefesh, we have to make a Cheshbon HaNefesh. See, hob mit the Chayas, do we have the Chayas in the union of Chassidus? What says means like this. You have to make a Cheshbon HaNefesh. I'm just saying what it says. I'm not saying held by anything. I'm just not telling anything to anybody. I'm just repeating what it says. That the Cheshbon has to be to make a Cheshbon yourself with these words. In vos ligich. That's the whole word. Chaya, when you have a chayas in what? You have a chayas in vos melikt. If something that's part of you and you enjoy it and you're involved in it, that's where you have a chayas. Something that you don't enjoy, something that you're not, it's not a ikir, you don't have a chayas in it. So when we have to make a cheshbon HaNefesh of the chayas that we have in the union of Chassidus, it means we have to make a cheshbon HaNefesh in vos likt men. In other words, what's important to us? What's the important thing in our life? We're not like Amalek Chassidim. die gelegen in little kus and the Bittel Rebbe's Chassidim, they used to meet, they used to talk, talking about at least in our level, which is a simple level, also in Vos Lichtman, which is Al Derech, the story that Rebbe once told. I think he told it more than once. Yeah, I think he said it twice. The story with Rebbe Michal der Alter, Rebbe Shmuel Michal's training, that Michal der Alter, given from Mashpiyim, was a Mashpiyim in Lubavitch. He was known as the Mame from Timchet Mimim, and he was a very special. His Abbas Yisrael was great, and he was when he couldn't give a shir chassidus anymore, and he's older already. So the director from the yeshiva, the Gashmistic director, wanted to fire him. I know he can't do the job, and the Rebbe Rashab told him not to do it. Why? Because his tziyur being in yeshiva, just being in yeshiva is enough. He's worth the salary. I mean, we're just trying to describe who he was. And he helped, he was mamish, a person who used to help the bochrim and everything. That once they say he was in the middle of Krishma and he saw a bocher torn shoes, he stopped and he took him to make sure that he's going to buy shoes. So they asked him, middle of Shema Yisrael, you're thinking about the shoes? Yeah, he said to think about the bocher's shoes is avaya achod. Anyway, so if any time there was a bocher who had a problem with the priziv was meaning the draft, and they had to get out of it. So he was much involved. So once he had to go to Petersburg to help work there for about a bocher who was, they had to get out of the army, or he shouldn't have to be drafted to the army. So he came to Petersburg, and there lived this chassid called Reb Shmuel Michal Treinin, also from the Chassidim, and he was a rich man, a person in town, and he was supposed to go with him to help him work again to see how to get the bocher out. So they were going on the major street of Petersburg, known as Nevsky Prospect, and the way the Rebbe described it, he must have been before davening, this Rebbe Michal der Alter, and b'meile he just finished making his hachones to daven, so he wasn't buttoned the way you're supposed to be buttoned, statechna the right way. So as he walking, so Shmuel training in the Eidel Eifon turned around to him and he said to him, here you're going in Petersburg, yes, you got it buttoned up right. But the way I understood from the way the Rebbe said it, probably his zipper was open, something like, he wasn't. So he says to him, so when he told Reb Michal der Alter in the Eidel, because he knew Reb Michal der Alter could answer back, so he told him, but you have to take care of this. So he said to him these words. He said to him like this, Reb Shmuel Michal, he said, guckt in was liegt. Look where you're involved in. To him, being involved, you have to be statechn, you have to be everything as a fit begashmi, as that wasn't liegt in them. So that's a madrege of those chassidim. But the nekuda is that when it comes to Chayel, we have to think to see in vos milikt. What are we mainly involved? And that's connected to Timchet Mimim. Because what the Rebbe Rashab said when he gave the Talmidim of Timchet Mimim, he said that's the whole idea, to train them, to be mechanech them, that they should be people was liegen in Ruchnius. What was the famous sikha that the Rebbe Rashab said? The sikha from Kola. Anybody who goes to Mohamed's Beis David, Kol Yetzel Mohamed's Beis David, get Christus Kesav Ishtei. And if you go to Mohamed's Beis David, he would write a get to their wife. So he says every Talmud Timchet Mimim is a soldier in the Milchama, to fight the Milchama from Beis David. And get Christus Kesav Ishtei. He touched Ishtei means the goof. You have to make it get cut with your Gashmias. Now, it doesn't mean cut Gashmias. You have to have Gashmias. But it was only shlicken at them. That should not be what Archaius is. That's in Timchet Mimim. In other words, in was liegt man, was geht man rein? What are we involved in? And I'm not saying it as a person who's trying to say things to others. I'm just saying what the sinyan is. And that has to do with the parsha. The Rebbe says in the Sikha on Hoye Kisove Ala Oretz. So he said the word Kisove means to go in completely. The Rishtava Yeshavtava, you go in and that's where you are in Ganzen, Ibrahim in Ganzen. The Gemara says, "Bia b'miktsas leishma bia." If you go in a little bit, that's not really you went in. It says like abadin of a metzera that if a person goes into a room where there's a metzera, you become tamei. But if you only put in a little bit of you don't go in completely. You put it in your hand. You don't become tamei. Why? Because it's like a mikvah also. Because bia b'miktsas leishma bia. By mikvah also it says you have to go into the water. So you have to go in completely. If one hair is out, it's no good. So bia means going in means in ganzen. So hoyeki sobi al oretz means that you're going in ganzen, that we have to go in oretz. What's oretz? Oretz is lomash nikra shmo oretz. Sherotzet zolaset etzenkena. The rotzen to do what Davish wants. The rotzen means it ran or it wanted to do Davish's rotzen. So it means that you have to be arranging ganzen. Now, what does it mean in our levels? Our levels doesn't mean the ganzen tag sitzen and lernen and ganzen tag lernen chassidus and then. That's not our level, however it would be. But at least, what's more important? What's priority for us? The priority, which means that's the one, good, because we're not at tzad tzadikim t'murim. But the idea of arangin, and that's connected, that's taich kisove. It's like the Baal Shem Tov says, Pashas Neyach, boya la teva. Arangin in the vetter, we should go in, we should live in it, that should be our life. Another thing which negates to the Pashas Kisove. The Rebbe explains another sicha, also the same word, that Bikurim represents the Yidden. Bikurim, it says by in a posig, that the Yidden are called Bikurim. Why? Bikurim is the first fruit, and the Yidden are the first of the creation. The whole creation was there because of the Yidden. So they're the beginning, the top of the creation. And what do you do with Bikurim? Bikurim has to be brought in the Beis Hamikdash lifnei Hashem Elokecha. So the Rebbe says that this teaches us that a Yid, which is represented in Bikurim, has to always feel that he is lifnei Hashem Elokecha, that he's in front of Hashem. In other words, he has to feel that is his whole Metzias. Metzias is the priority of his Metzias is lifnei Hashem Elokecha. That's what Chassidus B'chal teaches us. That's what Temchat Mimim is for. But that's what it's supposed to. That's what the remez of Bikurim, and that's the thing that we have to think about when it comes to Chai Elul, when the supposed talks about the union of Chayes. So the Chayes means that this is in them Lichtman, and that's connected to being the Yom Holedes of the Baal Shem Tov and the Alter Rebbe, and the Rebbe. Whatever I'm saying, it's often different siches. The Rebbe says in a different siche that it's connected to the union of Yom Holedes, the union of birth. What's the union of Yom Holedes? When the child is born. What happened? The child is born. Till the child is born, the child is also alive inside the mother. The only thing is, it's not his chayes. It's not his life. The Gemara says, he eats with his mother, he eats sheisa. And his whole chayes comes from his mother. It's not really his chayes, even though he's alive. In Ruchnis, it's a very high madrege while he's inside his mother. Gemara says, Neir Dolek al Reshe, there's a candle over his head, which means a Ruchnisli candle. The Malach teaches him Kol HaTorah Kula. But still, his chayes is not his own. His nefesh, his neshama is not his own. When he's born, then the neshama comes begilui. The neshama coming begilui, this is, when we talk about gilui ha-neshama, when Chassidus talks about gilui ha-neshama, this is what gilui ha-neshama means. Gilui ha-neshama means, every Yid has a neshama. Your neshama is begilui, sheshine by you. What shines by you? What is your life that you feel begilui? Not be'etzem. Every Yid be'etzem is a lakus, fine. But what's the gilui? That's the gilui ha-neshama. That's the herzach, what the neshama stands for, that stands as, that's our gilui. And that's the verbunden with chayel, the chayes, that this is our metzias. That's the Gilui HaNeshama. You know the famous story that the Leibel once came. I think I told the story one of the Farbrengen. Leibel once came to the Alter Rebbe, and he came along. I mentioned this. Came along with a chassid, one of his chassidim, and he was mentioning to the Alter Rebbe, he's introducing him, and he says to the Alter Rebbe that this chassid has Gilui Eliyahu. Eliyahu comes to him. Imagine Eliyahu Novi comes to you. You can imagine how great this is. He has Gilui Eliyahu. So, Punkt then was standing on the other side of the shul, standing Rabbi Yom Kletzker, he was Dominic Shmonesre, and he was holding by Sim Sholem. The Alter Rebbe says to the Baditchever, and this Chassid, Ishas, he's saying Sim Sholem, because that's what he was saying, Lachter von sein Gilui Eliyahu. He's laughing from his Gilui Eliyahu. So the Alter Chassidim from years before, what we remember is the Chazer over this Farbrengen of the Greinem, that when he told this story, he touched to his shot, he's laughing at this Gilui Eliyahu. What's wrong? What's there to laugh about? So he said that B'shas is davni hat a Gilui HaNeshama. And Gilui HaNeshama is hecher from Gilui Eliyahu. Gilui HaNeshama is much higher. What's the pshat? In simple words, Gilui HaNeshama is what the neshama represents, which is the Eibush, the Elokus. That's by you, Begilui. That's what Chassidus is all about. And Chayel, that's the Chayes. But in simple words, in our level, we have to just make a cheshbon, because this is the beginning of the cheshbon nefesh of the last 12 days, especially of the month of Tishrei, which is the beginning of the whole year. Vu liegt der Chayes. That's what you have to think. Vu liegt der Chayes in our level, not in the level of Rabbi Yom Kletzke, but in our level. Where is our priorities for ourselves, and where is the priorities which the children see? That's what the cheshbon nefesh that we have to make. It's connected, obviously, to Chassidus, as I'm saying. So, to realize, one of the practical things is to realize that Chassidus did not change. And that's something that a lot of people have to work on. For some people, there is, used to be Chassidus. It changed only in Siyur because we're different people and the times are different. The Nekuda is the same. The Nekuda of Chassidus is the same that it was from the beginning of the Baal Shem Tov. And then by the Alter Rebbe, Chassidus Chabad, it's all the same. Some people have this thought that, now it's different, we have to look different, we have to change, we have to make only in the technicalities of it, the Siyur of it. But the Nekuda has to remain. We always have to remember that it didn't change. It didn't change. This was one of the things that bothered the Rebbe so much. When one of the Rebbes in their Welt came out once and he wrote in the Sefer, Nishtakcha Teres HaBaal Shem Tov. The Torah of the Baal Shem Tov was forgotten. It bothered the Rebbe ad mitzvah hanefesh. Was heißt es? Baal Shem Tov, Chassidus ist bis Mashiach weiter. Was heißt vergessen geworden, forgotten the Torah of Baal Shem Tov. It bothered the Rebbe. And they said that's why Tovshin Chof, it was 200 years from the Staltas of the Baal Shem Tov, the Rebbe made such a shturim in the letters. Why? Because it's all to go against the Nekuda of somebody saying the Shtak Teres of Baal Shem Tov. Yutas Kislev, Tovshin Chof, what the Rebbe spoke about, the letter of the Rebbe Rashav, he wrote Tofresh Samach Beis, but the famous letter where he writes Rosh Hashanah the Chassidus, but Yutas Kislev Rosh Hashanah the Chassidus, there he writes V'negeya Chassidus Chabad, he Teres HaBaal Shem Tov. But Chassidus Chabad is the Teres HaBaal Shem Tov. It's there, and we have Chabad, and that's Teres HaBaal Shem Tov. And the Rebbe explained by the Farbrengen. Why did the Rebbe Rashav write twice the word he? Because it says in Gemara, V'negeya Kotshim, Shina Olav HaKosov La'akiv. If it says twice, it means it is, no question about it. He Teres HaBaal Shem Tov. And the Rebbe bothered. Some people think now, even with the Shitas Chabad, that Nishtakach, it's not the same. I mentioned this many times that I once heard from Rabbi Weinberg, and I'll say it again. He was once talking to me. Rabbi Weinberg said to me, this was after Gimel Tamach, 10 years after Gimel Tamach, 15 years, I don't know, I remember. So he says to me, I was talking to him, he says, we see how Chassidus is growing. Lubavitch, leaps and bounds. He says this is Alts Benegeya, the Tnuas Lubavitch, the movement of Lubavitch. Was Zayin, was geht mit Chassidus Lubavitch? That's what you have meant. And it goes together. There's Tnuas Lubavitch, there's the movement, or let's use the words, there's the organization of Lubavitch. The organization of Lubavitch is Meire Meroimdig. But we have to remember, we from the inside know that this is all based on the Nekuda of Chassidus. There's a Sikha from the Friedrich Rebbe, and once the Rebbe said something similar. The Friedrich Rebbe says, there's a Sikha, he says that the whole Inyan that were involved in being Mekarev Yidden and Marbitzdai Frumkeit and Yiddishkeit, that really should be done by Askonim, by people, activists who work and do this. This is their job. My Inyan, he said, is Chassidim Uchsidis. Others are not doing that, so we have to do it. But it's all based as a result of the union of Chassidim and Chassidus. Chassidus. So we have to remember that this union of Nishtakach, Teres Chassidus, Chas v'Sholom, Nishtakach, or Nishtane Teres Chassidus, that's false. And that comes to Chayel. That's the time you have to remember. The Chayas has to be back. The Chayas has to be in Baal Shem Tov and the Alter Rebbe, which is Chassidus, in the level that we're Shayach. Versteht sich? We're not jumping in high levels. The level the way we're Shayach. In the Aveda Chassidus, and even though people say, the Rebbe was Muftzoi, the main thing, they ask once the Rebbe, how come the Rebbe doesn't talk about the Nyonim, davening? He says, I have to talk about it. That's all written already. I came extra things. But the truth is, even the Muftzoyim is also part of the Derech HaChassidus. Besides that the Yesod of Chassidus is Avos Yisrael, Perek Lamed Beis of Tanya, the Melot is Avos Yisrael. But besides that, the Etzem Zach of doing Muftzoyim is an expression of Aveda. What's Chassidus? Aveda, you have to work for the Eibishter. You have to work yourself. So instead of work with the Eibishter in Davi, you work with the Eibishter and you break yourself. That's the whole idea. You break yourself to do something. I remember I mentioned this before. The Rebbe once said, Tovshin Chof Ches, after he started Mitzvah Tefillin, when the 6-day war was, he started Mitzvah Tefillin. So for a whole year, I don't know, Mamish, a whole year, every big Farbrengen, he spoke about Mitzvah Tefillin more and more different than Yonim. So he said that if you go out in the street and you stop a Yid and you ask him, are you Jewish? And you put on film with him, if it's something that you feel good, comfortable doing, you did Mitzvah Tefillin, but that's still not the Tachel. The Tachel says if it's uncomfortable, if you do it. And you do it. It's like it says in the Rebbe Rashab writes in Amayim, the Samachs, that tzedakah, the mitzvah of tzedakah is about giving tzedakah to a poor man. But if it doesn't hurt you and it's not so hard for you to do it, that's not the uftu for mitzvah tzedakah. Mitzvah tzedakah is that you have to work on yourself. And the Rebbe said the exact same thing in the game mitzvah film. So the union of mitzvah film is Avedas Achsidus. You can't be mechalik and say, this is the Rebbe. No, the Rebbe didn't talk about the old things of Chassidus. He talked about Karev. This being the Karev, besides the mitzvah of Avos Yisrael and bringing Mashiach and all Zachen, this is an expression of the Avedas of Chassidus. The Bemesh is the Yisod of Gatzidishkeit, like in Tanya, a Guf Yike, and Shom Yike, a Guf Tofel. So, this is what Chayel is about. Chayel is a time of to sit down and make Cheshbon HaNefesh, that to see Vumihalt Alderech, like we have always by Yutas Kislev. One of the things Yutas Kislev you always talk about is the Maisa from the Alter Rebbe while he was in jail, and the guy asked him why the Eibishter Ayeka, and the Alter Rebbe explained to him, the Eibishter asks every Yid Ayeka, who bist du? Where are you? So the pshat is, this is something that wouldn't, the Maisa that's told over him, it's a part of what Chassidus is. The Chassidus is to look into yourself, Ayeka, who bist du, who halt ich? Not so much, was tu ich? Was tu ich is you have to know, what am I doing? I'm doing the right thing or not? But besides that, what's my priority? And this is what really Chai Elul is about. And connected to Tevchatnima, like I said, especially now, this year, which is 100 years from the Istalkus of the Rebbe Rashab. So certainly, Herzachon, the union of Temchetmimim, what Temchetmimim stellt for, and from then on, they were the forefront of Yiddishkeit, the forefront of Mesiras Nefesh. Was all connected to Temchetmimim. And it was all in the days of Chayel. That's the Chayel, and that's when they started learning. Then there's just another thing I want to mention. The Negeya, interesting thing, Negeya Chayel, what comes to mind is that the famous 7 Torahs of the Baal Shem Tov, the Rebbe Rashab heard it in Gan Eden in the year Tofresh Nun Beis, on Chayel. Tofresh Nun Beis, Shabbos, Parshas Kisove was Chayel, and the Rebbe Rashab saw what's going on in Gan Eden. And he repeated it over, and the Frierdiker Rebbe had it over also. And he said over what he saw in Gan Eden. And what did he see? What did he hear? He saw the getting together people on Chayela, and the Baal Shem Tov was speaking, and he told over a few Torahs in the Baal Shem Tov. Some are clear, some are not even so clear. So this all happened on Chayel. In other words, the idea that we see, the Keich of the Rabbeim, that they're able to see what's going on in Shemayim, what's going on in Gan Eden, and the fact that they see what's going on in Eden, we understand. But even to be able to, not be able, but to want to repeat it, was Bechlal, by the Rabbeim, they didn't repeat things that are going on Lamaila. They didn't repeat. It says, Moshe Rabbeinu, when Miriam and Aaron spoke against Moshe, the Eibusha said, "V'chol beisi nemanhu." Moshe Rabbeinu, in my whole house, he's trustworthy. So the Shaila goes, what should he trustworthy in the Eibusha's house? What's he going to steal? What's he going to steal up there? So the Varti is he doesn't tell over what he sees. And when the Rabbeim did say over what they saw Lamaila, that's something very special, that they went out of their way. You know, who was the one that Tzemach Tzedek said that he's a child says over what you see in Cheder? It was not the Koiden of it. No, I don't remember it. Anyway, he used to say a lot of things that he saw Lamaila. So Tzemach Tzedek said he says over things that he really shouldn't. So the Rebbe Nashaf should be able to say over, but not be able to decide to say over what it says. And Frieger Rebbe told it over later. That shows that's also something special. Upon him, the bottom line is, after everything, it's Chayel, almost Chayel, so we have to make the cheshbon start a cheshbon on Nefesh, and Kumitz Verstand, where are we holding in the Inyonim of Chassidus? So I'm going to learning Chassidus, I'm going to the dark Chassidus, but the Ikir is the mindset. That's what I'm talking about, is the mindset. The mindset, was Trachtman, what's the priority? And Baruch Hashem, there are hundreds, thousands and thousands of Chassidim like that. But we still have to make a cheshbon, each one in his own cheshbon. Is he like that or not? And if you see that you are, you have to be Meisif. And if you see that Chas v'Shalom someone is not, has to change it. That's the best achana for Rosh Hashanah. Because this is all the feeling of Chassidus, which is Eineid Muvadi, that's what it is. And Rosh Hashanah is the time when we Kabbalah say Malchus Shemayim. This is the best achana for Rosh Hashanah. And that's why Chayel, the letters of the Baal Shem Tov and the Alter Rebbe came Takev before, right, Mamish close to Rosh Hashanah, because this is the achana to Rosh Hashanah. Just Benegay Stam, we're talking about Chayel, just to mention, everyone knows this, but just to Benegay the birth of the Alter Rebbe. We know that when the Baal Shem Tov, on his day of his birthday, the Baal Shem Tov used to make a big Farbrengen. On Chayel, every year Chayel is make a Farbrengen. In the year Chayel, Tov Kuf Hei, when the Alter Rebbe was born, he was very, very freilach, the Baal Shem Tov, very aufgelegt. And the Talmidim didn't know why, what's so special. He even davening for Omid with a special nigun. So he told him later that today, the Neshama Chadosh is coming down to this world. And he said, B'chlal the Seder, what goes on Lamaila, when a Neshama is supposed to come down, I'm familiar with it. But the Seder of how Neshama Chadosh comes down, that I never saw. And this is why he was so freilach. The Baal Shem Tov said, didn't say who it was. So there's the Baal Shem Tov's Yemeledes, the Alter Rebbe's Yemeledes. It's a sikha where the Rebbe explains that the Frierdiker Rebbe said, based on the meaning of the Baal Shem Tov from Achia Shaleni, that you have to say the capital of your age. So what happened to Chayel when the Alter Rebbe was born? The Baal Shem Tov started saying the capital Memches. It was 40, became 47 that day. He started Memches. And the Rebbe explained the whole kesher between Kapitel Memches and the Alter Rebbe. So it's all begeid how it affects, how it relates to Chassidus Chabad, what the Alter Rebbe took it on. Anyway, L'chaim, David should so helpful that we should take it to heart. I mean, I should take it to heart. I mean, everybody also. But I'm saying if I say it to somebody else, I really mean it. To myself, I don't. So maybe it could be one of my yitzim in left because I really mean somebody else. Do the stone because somebody else should do. Anyway, so we should bring it down in ice of a pale and straighten and design more chassidim and makashorim to the Rebbe and do what the Rebbe wants, and that'll be the greatest achana to Rosh Hashanah. L'chaim. I think we should try again to sing a nigun. And then we'll hear from Rabbi Litzker. I believe he's on. I don't know. I see he's on. So we'll hear from him. No. Dr. Levine, you sang before, start again, and we'll be able to, you have to unmute.
Which niggin?
Which niggin? Kedai is the Alter Rebbe's niggin, Adu Hashem Tov. Tzoma Lecha Nafshi, that's also the Alter Rebbe's niggin.
Tzoma Lecha Nafshi, Kama Lecha, yeah. Sorry.
The Eretz
Yavli Mayim Yama Kodesh Chazi Sicha Lirosuscha Chvoidecha Kodesh Chazi Sicha Lirosuscha Chvoidecha Kodesh Chazi Sicha Kodesh Chazi Sicha Lirosuscha Chvoidecha Kein Kodesh Chazi Sicha Lirosuscha Chvoidecha Kein Kodesh Chazi Sicha